See that building behind me? Well, that's the IRS building in Chicago, Illinois. But you know what it kind of looks like to me? It kind of looks like something called the Borg. If you're not familiar with the Borg is, take a look and Google it and look up Star Trek. It was the ultimate enemy of Star Trek, The Next Generation, its crew with Captain Picard and others. What it was a giant black square like this out in space, kind of reflective the way this is. But what it did, it took and it was a mechanism and a robot that was all connected together, and it would take humans and take them and make them part of its robotic organization. It would turn humans into part of a giant robot. Well, a lot of people have talked about this being a critique of the church. In fact, the Borg, which this represents, it always would say, resistance is futile, you will be assimilated. In fact, to younger generations today, when you talk about assimilation, it's not a positive word. We've heard for a long time from sociologists that things on with assimilation sound too much like you have to leave your culture behind and join them. I still remember when I first got saved and I went back to the church I grew up in. I was a hippie back in those days. That was the early 1970s. I had hair way down to here. I had bell bottoms out to the next county, and I was wearing beads and a military jacket with 50 brass buttons. And I remember going into the pastor's office and I said, hey, I want to be a pastor. I want to go and become a minister. And he said to me, Bob, you're going to have to cut your hair and you're going to have to wear a suit. And I said, cut my hair and wear a suit? Why? And he said, because that's the people in the church you're going to be ministering to. And I said to him, I don't want to minister to those people. I feel called to the hippies, the young people like myself. As a musician, as a young person, as I was a newspaper editor of an underground newspaper, I said, I want to reach out to my culture. Well, the pastor didn't get it. And he told me, he said, well, good luck. And I left. And in fact, that denomination I still hold close ties with, but I severed my relationship with them at that time, just because I feel called to a different culture. The word for that, of when another culture wants to take you and absorb you into their culture, make you wear their clothes, their hairstyle, their look, their talk, is called assimilation. Now, I want to suggest that you don't use the word assimilation for your guest services. Especially people under 45 are going to remember the Borg, that big square in space that would take people's minds and mold them into one robotic being. No, instead, there's a better word, and I talk about this in a recent article in biblicalleadership.com. I said there's a better word for assimilation, and it's a little unwieldy, but it's a technical term that's better. It's called acculturation. Acculturation means the two cultures come together and they keep certain things that are central to their principles and their beliefs, but they allow their different styles to commingle together, to blend together. So you'll see this in churches that offer blended services. You'll see this in churches that may offer a contemporary and a traditional service, but as one church, they lead the church together. Or a church that has an African American congregation and a Hispanic congregation that work together to lead the church. It's not taking and making one culture dominant, taking over and absorbing the other. Acculturation means getting both cultures together to find the best in both. Now, a caveat, and I spoke about this in the article, I don't want you to get rid of your Orthodox theology. I don't want you to give up your Orthodox theology, but I want you to blend your traditions, blend your preferences, blend your aesthetic taste, and allow the gospel to pull you together, an orthodox biblical belief to pull you together. That's better than being assimilated. It's respect for each culture. It's acculturation. Read the article on biblicalleadership.com, and I describe that in more detail there.